Odysseus and his crew had survived the Cyclops, Circe, the underworld, the Sirens, and Scylla. Only one ship remained. Ithaca was still possible. Then the exhausted men killed cattle on a forbidden island. That meal ended the homecoming of every crewman except Odysseus. Welcome to Gods and Heroes Unveiled, where ancient myths reveal the choices hidden inside legendary journeys. Subscribe for more stories from the Odyssey, and stay until the end, because the cattle of Helios exposed a crew broken by hunger, a commander losing control, and a disaster predicted long before it happened. The warning was already clear. Tiresias had warned Odysseus in the underworld. If the cattle of Helios remained unharmed, the crew might still reach Ithaca. If they touched them, the ship and men would be destroyed. Odysseus might survive, but he would return late and alone. Circe repeated the warning before they sailed. On Thrinacia grazed 7 herds of cattle and 7 flocks of sheep, 50 animals in each group. They never reproduced or diminished. Phaethusa and Lampede, daughters of Helios, guarded them. This was not ordinary livestock. The prophecy was specific. 1 island, 1 sacred herd, 1 consequence. If the animals remained untouched, home was still possible. If they were harmed, the last ship would be lost. The men could not later claim that no one had warned them. The island they should never have reached. After escaping the Sirens, Odysseus steered between Scylla and Charybdis. Scylla seized 6 of his best men. The survivors were exhausted and grieving when Thrinacia appeared. From the sea, they could hear the cattle lowing and the sheep bleating. Odysseus remembered the warnings and ordered the helmsman to turn away. Eurylochus refused. He accused Odysseus of being made of iron, strong enough to continue while everyone else collapsed from fear, labor, hunger, and lack of sleep. Eurylochus argued that sailing through the night was more dangerous than landing. Sudden winds could destroy them before morning. The crew needed food and rest. The men agreed. Odysseus was now one commander against many desperate sailors, and they would not continue. Odysseus yielded, but demanded a solemn oath. No one would kill a cow or sheep. They would eat Circe's provisions and leave at first light. Every man swore. Then Zeus covered the sea with a violent storm, trapping the ship beside the island. A month of hunger. For an entire month, the south wind blew without relief, joined only by the east wind. Escape was impossible. At first, the crew survived on grain and wine. Fear of the prophecy kept their hands away from the cattle. The grain vanished. The wine was gone. The men caught fish, birds, and anything else they could find. Nearby, hundreds of sacred animals grazed in full view. The warning remained clear, but starvation made obedience feel less like wisdom and more like a slow death sentence. Homer does not present them as careless men ignoring an easy command. They had watched companions die, rode through terror, and lost every ship except one. Now they were trapped for weeks with no control over the wind. Their decision was wrong, but their desperation was real. Odysseus went inland alone to pray for a path away from Thrinacia. He washed his hands and appealed to the gods. Instead of an answer, sleep fell over him. The commander who demanded restraint was removed at the moment that restraint finally collapsed. Eurylochus makes the choice. While Odysseus slept, Eurylochus gathered the men. He did not pretend the cattle were safe to kill. He understood the warning. His argument was darker. Every death is hateful, but death by starvation is the most miserable of all. Eurylochus proposed sacrificing the finest cattle to the Olympian gods and eating them. If they reached Ithaca, they would build Helios a rich temple. If Helios destroyed them, Eurylochus would rather drown in one moment than waste away slowly on an empty shore. The speech transformed disobedience into desperate ritual. The men knew the animals were forbidden, but tried to make the act resemble a sacrifice. They exchanged certain starvation for uncertain divine punishment. The crew agreed and drove the finest cattle toward the ship, the sacrifice that became a crime. Their supplies were so depleted that they could not perform the ceremony properly. They used oak leaves instead of barley and water instead of wine. They prayed, killed the cattle, prepared the thigh pieces, and roasted the meat. When Odysseus awoke, the smell of burning fat reached him. He knew what had happened. He cried that the gods had ruined him by sending sleep while his companions committed the act. But accusation could change nothing. The cattle were already dead. Then the impossible began. The hides crawled. The meat on the spits, cooked and raw, made sounds like living cattle. The omens erased any illusion that the gods accepted the sacrifice. Still, for 6 days, the crew continued eating the finest animals of Helios. Lampede carried the news to her father. Helios demanded vengeance against the companions of Odysseus. These were the cattle he delighted to see while crossing the sky and returning toward Earth. The men had violated something tied directly to the sun god's honor. Helios declared that without proper payment, he would descend into Hades and shine among the dead. The living world would lose the sun. Zeus answered that Helios must continue shining over gods and mortals. He would punish the crew himself. Zeus promised to strike the ship with a thunderbolt and shatter it at sea. This distinction matters. Helios demanded justice as the injured god. The cattle did not attack the crew, and Helios did not sink the vessel. Zeus delivered the sentence. The 7th day? After 6 days of feasting, the wind finally weakened. The men boarded the last ship, raised the mast, and sailed away from Thrinacia. For a moment, the sea appeared open. Then the island vanished, leaving only sky and water. Zeus placed a dark cloud above the vessel. A violent west wind snapped the forestays, and the mast crashed backward. It crushed the helmsman's skull and threw him from the stern. Before the crew could recover, thunder broke over the sea. Zeus hurled the promised bolt. The ship twisted beneath the strike and filled with sulfurous smoke. The crew fell into the water and drifted around the wreck like seabirds. Homer's judgment is final. The god took away their homecoming. Odysseus alone. The waves tore the ship apart. Odysseus lashed the mast and keeled together with a remaining ox-hide rope and sat astride the wreckage. The prophecy had become exact. The ship was gone. The crew was dead. Odysseus alone remained. Survival did not end the danger. The wind carried Odysseus back toward Charybdis. He clung to a fig tree while the whirlpool swallowed his raft, then dropped onto the wreckage when it reappeared. 9 days later, he reached Calypso's island. The slaughter of Helios' cattle was the crew's final mistake, but not their first. They had ignored warnings, opened the bag of winds, and repeatedly allowed fear or appetite to defeat discipline. Thrinacia was where every earlier weakness became irreversible. Who was really to blame? The simplest answer is Eurylochus. He proposed the slaughter, persuaded the starving crew, and knowingly accepted divine revenge. Without his speech, the cattle might have survived. But responsibility does not end with him. Every crewman had heard the warning and sworn the oath. Hunger explains why they broke it, but does not erase their choice. They continued feasting for 6 days even after the hides crawled and the meat cried out. This became more than one desperate meal. Odysseus did not kill or eat the cattle, and he tried to avoid Thrinacia. Yet he was their commander. He yielded to the landing. Earlier choices, especially revealing his name to Polyphemus and hiding the danger of Scylla, had damaged the crew's trust. By Thrinacia, Odysseus could command the route, but not the men. His sleep was divinely imposed, yet the crisis had developed for a month. The episode reveals a painful truth. A leader may understand the danger, give the correct order, and still fail to lead. The gods shaped the disaster. Zeus trapped the ship with hostile winds. Sleep overcame Odysseus. Helios demanded punishment, and Zeus destroyed the vessel. But divine pressure did not make the crew innocent. Fate arrived through a choice they had been clearly warned against. The deeper conflict is hunger versus obedience. Eurylochus chose an immediate human need over a divine command. Odysseus chose obedience while offering no practical escape. The crew followed the voice promising one meal instead of the leader asking them to continue suffering. The cattle represent a boundary that cleverness cannot negotiate. Odysseus deceived the Cyclops and resisted Circe. But on Thrinacia, there was no trick. The command was simply to leave what belonged to a god untouched. The final test required restraint, not cunning. The crime threatened cosmic order. The animals never aged or diminished, and Helios saw them during his daily journey across the sky. When mortals killed them, the sun god threatened to abandon the living world. Zeus restored divine authority and completed Odysseus' isolation. Tiresias had said Odysseus might return only after losing every companion. Circe repeated the warning. The men swore they understood. At Thrinacia, prophecy was not a hidden trap. It became the result of a choice made under unbearable pressure. Conclusion: the cattle were not killed because the crew forgot the warning. They were killed because the men remembered it and decided starvation was worse. Eurylochus persuaded them. The crew broke its oath. Odysseus failed to preserve control. The gods made the consequence inescapable. The last ship vanished in lightning, leaving Odysseus alone on broken wood. Was the disaster mainly the crew's disobedience, Eurylochus' persuasion, or Odysseus' failure as a leader? Share your judgment in the comments. Like the video, share it with another mythology fan, and subscribe to Gods and Heroes Unveiled. Then watch the prophecy that warned Odysseus about Helios' cattle, and continue with Nausicaa, the princess who helped the last survivor return to Ithaca. Explore the complete Odyssey playlist for the full journey home.